to ask for more projects per year with the hope you will get a portion funded than to ask for one in a year and leave you one and done.
That's a hard question for you to answer completely. Obviously, it's not necessarily looked at on the state level by year. They're gonna look at it as it ranks on their criteria, regardless of what year it falls in for you.
Okay.
Once they scrub all of those projects from every airport in the state, by November 1st is when this is due. They probably won't get around to looking at it till the month of November, back sometime in December. But once they go through that matrix and put their ranking on it, that project that may be on your tip for 2017 may show up as 2015 with their available funds
Okay.
for that year.
All right, I understand that.
That's
Thank
why
you.
I was saying it could come earlier or it could come later. It's been on your TIP for several years now and it hasn't been able to be funded. You're looking, supposedly for the next 2 years, you're not looking at a different pot of money. It's the same pot of money that we've always looked at. But come 2015, you're gonna be looking at a larger pot of money in the new state systems ranking.
But you may get less for the slots.
That's right.
Okay.
It's always that.
And we'll be competing against more than just airport projects for the first time. That was probably the biggest changes.
And there's a minimum amount in there for airports, so you're kind of safed up a little bit to the tune of $15 million, I think it was, something of that nature, but it's still,
The other thing, Jimmy, I want to say is that what they plan to continue is the $150,000 a year, which is what you're referring to.
no, that's the $150,000 is federal money, this is strictly
I'm sorry.
state money.
But $150,000 a year grant, federal grant, that is not money we have to spend it or lose it. That's actually money we can save and roll.
It's a 4-year timeline, so yes, you could save up for a couple of years to do a larger project or to put money towards a larger project.
So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Right now, we've used up pretty much all of ours, or where are we with that money?
No one's received 13 yet.
For obvious reasons, yeah.
The state says those letters should be coming out here in the next 30 to 45 days, and you're actually due 14. So you have 2 years coming. You currently have some money left in your 12, and I don't know the number right off the top of my head, but I'd say maybe $65,000, $70,000 in that one grant, and then you have some money left in the land grant to the tune of about $80,000. Those are the only 2 active grants you currently have.
I want to make you aware that you do have funds available if there was a capital project that you want to go forward on right now. We're not recommending it, but I want to make sure you all are aware of it in case you all decide you want to do something differently.
And that's no more local match, you've already approved that match, that was just 10% that you approved whenever you accepted those grants. So that money doesn't necessarily go away, there is a timeline on the grant. The state will allow you in some cases to move that money around. In other words, it's been earmarked, if you will, to be used at Rutherford County, as long as you got something that ranks for them to apply it to. They're not gonna necessarily take it back from you. But if you don't have anything particular, they may kind of give you an IOU and say, okay, we know you had money left over in a grant that you didn't get to use, and we'll offer it to you at a later date. That's happened a couple of years ago to you as well.
When they were here a couple of weeks or 2, or whatever it was, did I understand right that in this district, we're the only airport that would be competing? Is that correct or not?
I think that was what I
We're the only of our class
Our
of
class
airport.
airport.
Right.
The Nationals in our district.
Yeah,
But they compete in a different pool.
Right. There's this.
so and I know you probably don't know the answer, but you think that might give us a little advantage? Since there's not other airports of our class that are competing. I know we're competing against bike trailers and all that other stuff
Roads
too.
and everything else.
They're still, wrapping their arms around this as well. We had a meeting last Friday, was the Region 3 meeting, which you were in Region 3. It's held quarterly, but it was in Statesville. Mr. Walston gave a little more insight on the program. They're looking at basing it primarily on capacity. So capacity projects are gonna rank probably higher, like the need for a runway extension, the need for more ramp space, the need for more tie downs, things of that nature. kind of hard to say that you have a leg up on another airport. It really depends on what the other airport's projects are. You may only be competing with one more airport, but that other airport may have more quantitative data supporting their project than maybe yours.
And you've heard my pitch before, we need a commissioner to serve on the RPO.
Yes.
RPOs are gonna be a big part of this ranking process. So we have Danny Sersing, who's here, serves on the technical coordinating committee, if I recall. And then the TAC is the one for the elected officials only. So,
And that's, you know, that's gonna be your advocate voice as far as the major amount of points that you can gain with this.
and that applies to probably airport projects, road projects, bridge projects, everything. So, but those, they play a much bigger role than they ever did before.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Luther?
Mr. Chairman, there are two, on the airport suggestions, there were two specific capital improvements. One, well, it wasn't terribly specific, but it's on here, it's better airport lighting on ramp and graded and improved west side of runway because of erosion. Those are two that struck me that really aren't reflected in our capital improvements. Have those two issues come up before? Are they otherwise represented in here?
No, they haven't come up before, and as far as lighting, I took that to be area type lighting, and that's really not an eligible item. It's not taxiway or runway edge lights per se. I took it to be area lights, like on poles or floodlights type things. And the grading between the taxiway and the runway, it is supposedly graded to the criteria. Now, if there's some washes or stuff out there that aren't meeting standard, then that would be something to address, but I'm not sure why that came up. I'm not sure how that was derived, if that's someone wishing to land that as a grass strip and they feel like
I
there's
think
some
it was
roads or
that, I
something.
think it was that, just the idea of having a grass strip.
Technically, that's not a grass strip, it's just your safety area. So within that safety area, there could be drop inlets, there could be ditches, things of that nature that serve a purpose as far as draining the paved areas, and they're gonna be at a particular slope and a particular elevation if they're an inlet or something, so. I don't see that it meets criteria. You can't say I'm gonna go in there and grade it for a landing. That's not what it is. Now, if you had
That's what we were
a-
talking about doing.
I think so, I'll follow up with both of them, but I'm not saying you should slow down the process, but we can follow up to make sure that it's.
Okay, any other questions for Luther?
And I'm gonna
James?
pass this down to Carl. You guys may have seen it in the past. This is the 2012, the state did their economic contribution of airports in North Carolina. This is a handout you can get from the Division of Aviation, but kind of gives you a look at the whole state, all the airports, and in the back, on the very back page, lists every airport and their economic impact to the county. And you may be interested in just looking through that. Rutherford's listed in there. I've got a little arrow by it. Kind of shows you what your direct and indirect impacts are to the state as a whole on the aviation side. So that gives you a snapshot of kind of what the airports contribute to the state and the economic development. And a lot of that is driving this new change to the state ranking program here.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There will need to be action, obviously, on the TIP, by county commissions, so we can get it back to the state by November 1st.
It does require initial action by this board.
Okay, so we need a motion to
Yes, sir.
accept that? Okay, now, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept.
So we've got a motion, second, any further discussion? Any more questions for Mr. Luther? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting this TIP? I guess we have to move it forward to the commission board.
Is that correct?
To move it forward, signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Airport drainage, road drainage,
This is an issue you want to have brought back. David Odom has done some additional research. The materials are in your packet. Really, David, if you would take a moment and kind of outline the options that are available to the board.
Okay. In my mind, I think really there are only two options to try to address the erosion issue that are out there. Well, there are more than that, but there are two that I think that are practical. One is, we presented last week, and that's to abandon the culvert that's there now. And I spoke with the DOT, Matt Taylor, who is in the Spindle office here, and he indicated that it's not typical and likely that the DOT would be willing to consider abandoning that culvert, and he would support it. Ultimately, you know, it would be a decision, he could make the decision, but if he doesn't support it, we'd have to go to somebody else to try to get that abandoned. I just don't think that's going to be very likely, to be perfectly honest. They are still willing, as long as the property owner agrees, they are still willing to relocate the culvert. Again, all the work would be done inside the DOT easement, but they still would be willing to do that. And all I'm waiting for now is the initial release of our project. And the grass is up now, so next visit I think we'll get that. The other option that I presented to you was that we could divert the large majority of that drainage area to this culvert. And I did speak with Matt about that, and as long as we don't overload the culvert, they would have no problem with that at all, and they wouldn't even need to issue an approval, because it would be done, all work that would be done outside the right of way. It would be about 60 to 70% of the water from that runoff area, and it would have a big impact. Spoke with a local contractor, the one who does the landscape work here, and he gave me a price of $6,000 to install that ditch. It's about 750 foot long. So you'd be excavating a ditch and then using the spoils to build a berm on the downstream side of that to make sure that all the water gets diverted to that downstream culvert.
You all can do that. Beyond that, you know, I think it's just, they're gonna move forward, I think, with the other culvert, or is that something we need to take action?
That's nothing we need to take action on.
That's the DOT to look at.
Yes.
So,
All right. David, I appreciate your help and work. We'll just, I guess we'll take that into consideration as a future thing to do. On putting a ditch in, DOT's gonna take care of the culvert.
Correct. There's no action you need to take on that.
And what expense did you say on
The ditch?
Yes.
About $6,000. No more than $6,000. That was the upper estimate.
and that would move it to the farther ditch. The one they're gonna move it to is the one that's more in line with her property line. And that's, if you take no action, that's what DOT will do.
Okay.
Upon communication with her from DOT, you wouldn't be involved in that.
We need to do something needs to be done.
And strangely, if that's the one you endorse, the action you take is no action. I mean, you can endorse it if you want, you know, where DOT does, that's between DOT and the property owner.
I'd like to see how, let them move that culvert and see what that does before we move forward with any. Would that be a practical thing to do to see if that corrects some of the problem? Of course, we might not have another month.
Right, I mean, I hope we don't for quite a while, but
Something like this, does it need to be done in cold weather or in spring, or when's the best time of year to do it?
building the ditch,
Yes.
I wouldn't do it now because we're getting late in the season. I think I would wait. We're right at the tail end of the grass growing season, so we're gonna be excavating out a channel, seeding it. It would probably be better to do it, if you're gonna do that channel,
Early
in
spring.
the spring. Correct.
I wouldn't take that up in consideration another, probably January meeting, something like that, instead of any time.
Okay.
David, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Just let me know if I can provide any more information.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay, we got a tower review and procedures, for future review.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you 4 applications for towers. And I've asked Danny Searcy to come and talk about this issue with you, not just talk about these issues, but talk about this issue generally. You sat down. So we have a wall map in hand.
The small print that I'm handing out is the same thing that's on the wall. Those are the most recent 4 inquiries for communication towers. Historically, Rutherford County has received 1 to 2 inquiries per year for a new communication tower. As you're well aware, in the last few months, we've been averaging 1 to 2 per month. We recently had 1 in the town limits of Forest City, we had 1 in the ETJ. We've had these 4 just come up over since early September. And as you can see, Brooke has some copies in your package. One of them is a large keyhole shape. That is the RPZ. The county has an airport zoning ordinance that regulates the heights of structures and anything that could be a possible obstruction in that keyhole shape. And that's it as far as the big picture.